The war was everywhere. And I'm going to call it that because we were firing at one another. God, that it just was horrible.
Anti-war demonstrators protest U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War.
It wasn't a 9-to-5 job. I lost a lot of good friends overseas. Okay, my name is Harold, parentheses Butch, Erb. My last name is spelled E-R-B. I was born in Des Moines, Iowa, and but I was raised here. I have 4 brothers, one sister. She's passed away. She's the youngest. I have a very close friend that I've known since we were about, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years old, and we did everything, together. We're still best friends, and he and I, we're probably closer than some of my brothers. Growing up was, I would say, middle class. I'm a West Sider. Went to elementary school at Lincoln Park, and from there I went to Wilson Junior Middle School and went on to Auburn High School. I've always wanted to be a school teacher ever since first grade, but my school records, you wouldn't know that. Mr. Bestis was a teacher that I looked up to, and he was the one that told me that I could go to college. And which, that's one reason why I was kind of a yucky prior to that time, because he was telling me that he had gotten his college degree from the GI Bill. And that's how, all of the things all started to fall together for me. And when I graduated from high school, I went from there to Rock Valley College. And Rock Valley College, I was there one semester and taking some, just some mediocre classes just to get my feet wet. I was drafted, and I wasn't the happiest man on the block. I had goals finally. I was going to be a school teacher, and I was going to go to college. When I got drafted, we hit the bus, went into Chicago, did our stick in there, and they did all the poking and prodding and testing, and sent me home. And I said, nah, I don't want to go in the Army. And I knew I wanted a degree, and so I talked my best friend, Mike, and he and I went into the Marine Corps together. We went down and we did the buddy system, and my father, I remember, was really upset with me when that happened, and because Vietnam was getting really heavy at that time. I went in the Marine Corps in '66, and they started building up in Vietnam in '67. '68 was the Tet years, and just a young kid. In fact, I went to my aunt and uncle's house in the night before I left, it was just an impromptu thing, and I went over, but I walked by Harlem South campus, and I was hitchhiking home, and I told that school, I said, I'm going to teach here someday. I'm coming back, and I'm going to teach here. As soon as our DI met us at the airport, he was sort of roses and sugar and spice. He was a relatively pretty good guy until we hit the bus, and he turned into a bastard. We got to the base, and again, elbows and assholes, get off my bus, and you have 10 seconds, and you've already lost 9 of them, and I want you on those yellow footprints and stand tall. And that's what we did. And then the rest of the time that we were there, it was just him yelling at us and barking orders. Well, I shouldn't say just him. We had 3 DIs, and they were rotated, the good guy, the bad guy, and the son of a bitch. And they would just rotate in and out, and we ran everywhere. We did the pits. Boot camp was not an easy puppy. And I thought, in good physical shape because I was on the swim team. I used to run a little bit, and boy, that was tough. I never enjoyed running. To this day, I don't enjoy it. I don't even do it. But there's so many different things that they would just nitpick and make sure that you were all right, no matter what you did. They wanted to, they tore you down, they built you back up. You had to think about everything, and you had to, do it the right way the first time through. It was hard, but it was an experience that really made me grow up. I think it taught me to think things through before I did something. And 13 weeks of hell. But that last week, they let up on us, and it was really great. Well, we were the honor tune, 3302, class of 66. I went in September, and 13 weeks later, I graduated, and it was awesome. But one of the things that was sad about our war is the fact that we went over individually. Before we went over, we went into a infantry battalion. It's, they get a group of us together, and we wait until there's enough people to fly out. Mike stayed in the States, and I went to Vietnam. But I have one good thing to say about that. He somehow or other got on the air base. I don't remember if we were at Travis or where we were. This is on the West Coast. And while I was going up to get in this big silver bird, he was down there with his beer saying, "See you later, Butchie." It was kind of cool. I'd still call him an SOB, but that's beside the point. Then after you get enough people, then they put you on a plane, and then they send you overseas. And then from there, we got another airplane and ended up in Da Nang in South Vietnam. And I can remember when they opened up the door, the smell, the heat, and the humidity. It was just all 3 of those senses at just almost at the same time. But we were told to get off the aircraft, and we did, and got off, went to the reception area, and we had to sleep on cots that night, and there was a mortar attack, and it was just sort of like, welcome home, boys. Run for the bunkers and hit as low as you could. Being where I was, it was really kind of neat. We were right on the South China Sea. We could go surfing. We could go swimming. We had barbed wire fence. We had, conning towers. We still had to pull, duty, perimeter watch. I was with Meg 16. I was with ground support equipment. I worked with Huey's CH-53 aircraft. I was in charge of avionics. I did refrigeration. I did electrical, and it was really a pretty cool job. Got to fly helicopters. That was even cooler. I didn't fly a lot. It was, I didn't get that opportunity, but when I did get it, I jumped at it because, you get up in the air and it's clean. It's, it's air moving around you. It's not hot and damp, and it was really kind of neat. I loved looking at the scenery. It was awesome, just green, and it was a beautiful country, very beautiful. August 28th of 1967 is when I got wounded. And it was a night attack. We had a real bad experience with rockets coming into our area. And August 28th is my rebirth day. At that time, a rocket landed in the hooch. There's some of them that landed in the hooch areas, and we were on alert. And we decided, take a rest, so we didn't. If we have to go out on the perimeter, stay up and whatnot. But anyhow, to make a long story short, a rocket landed about from where you're sitting and where I am here. It killed a friend of mine instantly right next to me. I was wounded. I was throwing up out of the rack area, and anyway, there were 2 guys in my hooch that were killed, and a number of us that were wounded. After being wounded, we got out to the bunkers, and after everything settled down and it was quiet, they came around and checked to see who was where or what was going on. And the corpsman, God bless corpsman, found me, and I was really under the weather, so to speak. And they put me on a stretcher. They got me out of there, and I got to the hospital in Da Nang, and it was just off of Route 1. And on the way there, we were fired upon. So it was a very exciting evening. Luckily, I wasn't real bad. I had head injuries. I had arm issues, legs, and whatnot. Had a lot of shrapnel at the time, and they got rid of that for me. Some of it's still in me. They flew me and a couple other guys out to the USS Repose. They told me I was going home because I lost the use of my arms, but as you can see, I could move them But anyhow, they got me out there on the ship, and they did whatever they did, and uh, I got survivor guilt. Why was I, of the three people that were in that area at that particular spot in time, why was it that two of them were, killed, and we're all right within 3-4 feet of that rocket going off, and where we were, it was just ironic that I even survived. I had trauma. I lost a lot of hearing in this ear. I have hearing aids now. I had definitely had a concussion from it. And back in that day, they didn't talk about, traumatic brain injury like they do now. One night I was there, I got really, really down, and I got up in the middle of the night, and I was wandering around, and I went to a chapel. I came out of the chapel, and I sat down on some benches. I looked down a corridor, and I saw a gurney. And on that gurney was a veteran, and he had both legs amputated, had one arm amputated, and all he had was, I think it was his left arm. And then out of his head, there was a chunk of wood, looked like wood sticking out of it. And while I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself, noticing that guy, and at that point in time, I thought, what in the hell is he going to do? How is he going to get anything? And that's when I made a commitment that I was going to be a vocational instructor. And that's how I got into vocational education when I got out of the service. And that experience, seeing him and laying there on that gurney, I knew that I wanted to teach other people how to, work with their hands. And instead of being an art instructor, I felt, the vocational end of it would have been more conducive to it, for me to help. When I got wounded, it just gave me a better understanding of why I was alive, and the other two guys that were right with me, weren't. And I thought from that point on that there was a reason that I was a survivor. But they were able to do the repairs, and then I was taken back and let out in Da Nang Harbor. The ship pulled into Da Nang Harbor. I was loaded off, and I went back to my unit. And then from that point on, it was pretty stressful. Prior to that time, it was kind of carefree. After that, it was any little boom, anything. You could drop a hammer or something behind me, and I'd go off. It was a pretty difficult time. I went home one time for 30 days, and then I came back. I extended my tour in order to keep my brother. If he decided he wanted to stay in the States, then I would, I had it pretty well made, and he was going to be out with the grunts, as a motorman. And I just personally didn't think that, the war's starting to kind of wind down about that time. Prior to that, 67, 68 were really rough, during the Tets, and I went through those. It was a stressful time, but an exciting time. I couldn't wait to get out of Vietnam. My foot hit the stairs to walk up to get onto the plane. I was, starting to get a little relief, and we got on the plane, sat down. And, everyone was, kind of quiet looking out the windows and whatnot until the plane took off. And we got out, we're starting to go out over the ocean, and we knew, the pilot came on and said, well, we are now leaving, Vietnam, and everybody was stomping their feet on the plane. I mean, it was just like a roll of thunder going down through the plane, and whistles and shouts, and again, we're alone, individuals, not a group. I didn't know who I was sitting next to, and but we got home, got out, and it was wonderful feeling to be in Illinois. And it was funny that we were in a combat zone and one within a week, and then you're back, here and relative safety. I was in uniform. We were told not to, but I participated in something that the government asked us to do. And I was proud of the fact that I was a veteran, and I served with pride, and so did a lot of the others. And I didn't see any reason why I should have to bow down to the little orange-dressed individuals wandering around at the airport, giving me a hard time, and a little hippie girl that came up and gave me hell and then spit on me, and young people that, they didn't know really what was going on and what we were doing. In fact, I probably didn't know either. Just knew that I was there to do a job. But one of the things that I feel about coming home and being at home is I was thrown out of a VFW post right downtown Rockford. I took my mom and my dad. I was in full uniform, had my ribbons, and we were going to go there for dinner. And I was politely escorted out of the VFW, told that I wasn't welcome there, which really kind of pissed me off because at that time I had a VFW card from a post in Las Vegas, and they sponsored a bunch of us that were wounded. And so when we got back home, we were, we could go to, well, I was a VFW member, and to have a card and then be told by fellow veterans that I wasn't welcome there, that wasn't a war, I wasn't qualified to be there. And between them and the protesters, I really lost a lot of faith in my country, and I shouldn't have. I would have never joined if it wasn't for my damn uncle. He said, Butch, he said, I need you to join the VFW. And I said, I'll never, ever join. He said, you can't talk me into it. But he did talk me into it. And so on October 31st of 1988, I became a VFW member. After I retired in 2006, I was a member of the VVA, Vietnam Veterans of America, and I was a secretary. And one of the things that we did is not too many people know this, but veterans coming back from overseas, the young kids from Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan, they would land in the United States, would be in Rockford, Illinois. And at that time, there was a group of us that would meet the aircraft, and we would supply them with shaving gear and ghee dunk, cookies and candies and fruit and toothbrushes and shavers. And but the most important thing about doing that stick was the fact that every veteran that got off that airplane had to go through a gauntlet of handshaking, but in my case, it was always a hug for the young ladies. And they got a handshake too, but always got a hug. And they were welcomed home. And unlike the Vietnam veterans, but the Vietnam veterans sort of like, well, we won't let that happen again. And we have done whatever we can for our younger brothers. I hate to admit it, but I had post-traumatic stress, and I went to Topeka, Kansas. I was down there for a 9-week stay, and they helped me, gave me a toolbox of things to help me with my post-traumatic stress. And you know, we as veterans were able to help one another, and I think being in that close proximity of one another and doing everything together again, you know, that teamwork, it's just unbelievable. I can't talk to other people about my war experiences as well as I'm doing now if it weren't for, you know, the rest of the guys. They are a lot of spiritual hope, and gives it you more, you know, you have confidence when it's more than one. I know that guy's got my back no matter what happens, and he knows that I'm going to help him. It's the Marine Corps is very team oriented. It just, I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but the camaraderie that you have is it's there forever. I'd go to Arizona. I like going to Arizona. It's dry, you know. In fact, one of my best friends, I had a breakdown, and he was in Vietnam with me, and we were very good friends, dynamite friends. But he lived in Payson, and so every time we would drive out, we'd go through Payson and down to Phoenix to Apache Junction area. It was kind of cool, you know, seeing him and whatnot. But what brought this memory flash is the fact that Dave, he helped me when I was going through my war problems. And I wrote a letter to him, and boy, I just poured my heart out to him. And I don't remember how many pages it was, but it was a lot. And everything was good after that. I got the monkey off my back. And then it wasn't even a week later, I get this big, long letter, and it's on stationery that it says USS Enterprise, star date, you know, and all that garbage. And then it went on, you know, first starts off, Uncle Harold, you went through hell, you survived, get over it. And then he just went on and talked about different experiences, you know, that we did while we were overseas, and we were able to work our way through them. And so I would do it again, knowing what I went through again. I don't like the idea that I had to lose friends, but you know, that part's scary.
Over the course of making this documentary, I've learned a lot from Butch. He's taught me to laugh when you can, and that you're gonna have good and bad times. He's taught me what real loyalty is, and how to stay strong in what I believe in, no matter what. He's taught me how to find a purpose, even when it seems like there's nothing left out there for me. But what I think that he's taught me most of all is what true strength is. It's not about being able to flex or having the biggest brain in the room. It's about what's in here. It's about what's in your heart. And I've been honored to be able to make Butch's documentary and learn that about him. I mean, he has faced so many challenges and mountains after mountain he's been forced to climb on the war front, and even in his own home, in his own country. And yet his strength of character always made him persevere every time. Every time he's come out a bigger and a better person. And I can only hope that in making this documentary, some of his strength has passed on to me, and that I can take that with me into my future and become a bigger and better person with every challenge and mountain that I'm forced to climb. Because with every mountain that you climb, there's always going to be another bigger, scarier mountain, another bigger, scarier challenge. But what I've learned is that the higher you go, the greater the view.
What's your favorite memory from your time?
My favorite? I don't think there was one. There were good days and bad days, and I don't know. Every meal's a banquet, and every day's a holiday. And I don't think there's really one that really stands out different than another. My military experience was just that, a military experience that I treasured. And all of my days were good days and bad days. It's what, how you remember them.